our dear friends, Mr. Advertisers. We're going to have people across the country, all 4 time zones, watching your stuff. If you put an ad on the Big Ten Network, we have 14 hours of football content in a row. You can't beat that. You should give us your money. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Masterful, back at it again. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things EA college football, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that red subscribe button right now. I also do some pro football, college football, and Madden videos as well. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so we had a boondoggle of a situation a couple days ago at the Big Ten Media Days. Kevin Warren has, what I want to say here, not come right out and said it, but strongly hinted to the fact that we might not be done with conference expansion. He had several big items that he had mentioned, and he brought one up. I think he brought up kind of clumsily. Actually, as a matter of fact, there's some information he might have brought up that might be causing UCLA to go to litigation or things like that. That is a separate story here. Go somewhere else to find that. But what we're talking about right now is the fact that he kind of hinted at the fact that the additions of USC and UCLA, a lot of people think that they're kind of weird, they're outlandish, they don't really make a lot of sense. However, when you start to understand his comments and you start to understand where he's coming from, you can see the fact that this was intentional, and the fact that the old guard being college football conferences being limited by geography and or being strongly hinted at being limited by geography is kind of going away. We are headed towards an NFL light situation, and I think that you are a fool if you think that 16 is the limit of these conferences. Let's get into that transcript right now. So here's the transcript from Big Ten Football Media Days. Kevin Warren, good morning, good morning, good morning. Goes on and on about a couple of things. However, there's one key aspect here that you can look up. He had mentioned a couple different things here. One of the questions he had, what sort of studentship is there for you, in the sense that when we talk about academics, there's an academic part of this, but when you add USC, UCLA, ripping apart a conference that's been around for a century, huge academic ties to those schools. Athletes will be flying over 4 time zones to the East Coast to play games and matches. I guess what sort of responsibility and stewardship is there for you and not only others in this expansion pursuit? And he says right here, so because that, I think we look through the opportunities, as you alluded to, Dennis, of the issues or the problems, but what are the opportunities now that we are across 4 time zones, now that we could have schools in 2024 that will reach from New York, New Jersey to LA, what different cultural elements in each one of those environments, not only in the cities, but with their alumni, that could we even be fortify our educational relationship with our student athletes. So he kind of mentioned there, he's like, oh, across 4 time zones, across 4 time zones. Just to make sure everybody's clear, the Big Ten is only in 3 time zones in the 2024, the East Coast time zone, the Central time zone, and then the West Coast time zone. They are not in the Mountain time zone. But you can see down here, he also mentions it again, and I think he kind of get ahead of himself here, but he was like, so for us to be in the Big Ten, we're in 4 time zones. We will be in 2024, East, Central, Mountain, and West. So now we'll be able to provide content all the way from the morning into the night and lead into some really incredible programming. So I think the value of being across 4 time zones for multiple reasons is really important. So you heard what he said right there. He specifically said content. And I think what's going on, I swear you right now, the one thing that gets me more upset than anything in the entire world, I think it's kind of funny and kind of sad at the same time when people always boo Roger Goodell. But it's like, first of all, you shouldn't be booing Roger Goodell. Every time an owner steps up there, you should be booing the owner, because the owner is telling Roger Goodell what to do. So every time Roger Goodell does something you didn't like, guess who told him to do it? The owners. Every single time Kevin Warren says something or does something that you don't like, remember, he is a puppeteer, or is being puppeteered by Fox, in the same way that Greg Sankey is being puppeteered by ESPN. They are proxies for each other. It's just kind of a proxy war. Like, you know, in the Middle East, there are a couple proxy wars in Yemen right now between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Same thing with, I'm not comparing Greg Sankey and Kevin Warren to Saudi Arabia and Iran, but I'm saying the fact that they are fighting a war by funding or being funded by ulterior teams that aren't necessarily out there, making moves out in the open. They're actually behind the scenes. That was the reason why the college football playoff was not expanded upon, was specifically because Fox did not want the contract with ESPN to automatically renew, so therefore they could get into that bidding. That's the big reason why that was shot down. I know a lot of people blame Jim Phillips, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think it was Jim Phillips. I think a lot of it was kind of Kevin Warren, but that was one big aspect there. So You think about content, you think about across time zones and things like that. I actually want to go into what the potential is that for the Big Ten to be in the Mountain time zone, because I think a lot of people have like across 4 time zones, you're only going to be in 3. However, they are going to be able to, if you're in the West Coast time zone, it's easy to play games in the Mountain time zone in terms of the time slot for them to be able to watch it. But I want to make sure I can bring this up really quickly here to see what that potential looks like and where I think the Big Ten is headed for. So the first thing here we see is this US time zone map. We see over here, we got LA down here, and then we have all the rest of this over here. So in the Mountain time zone, there are actually only 13 football programs in the Mountain time zone. I'm going to bring them up here in a second because, again, if Kevin Warren is thinking across 4 time zones, you could still be across 4 time zones and have Portland and Seattle and this and that, because these games will play at times that's reasonable for them. Sometimes games over here are a little too early for people over here. I mean, 10 in the morning, some people like to sleep in. And then games over here that kick off at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, these people are going to bed, or unless you're going out and getting hammered, you won't be able to see the games. But I want to go ahead and bring up those 13 teams to kind of break this down so see what we're looking at. We come over here, we see that the 13 teams here in the Mountain time zone. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit here. So UNLV is over here and Lubbock is over here. These teams right here are in the Mountain time zone. So we have UTEP, New Mexico State, New Mexico, Air Force, Colorado, Colorado State, Wyoming, Utah State, Utah, BYU, Boise State, and then Arizona State, and then Arizona. So that's what we're looking at here. So what are important things we need to remember about all of these teams? Remember, I'm going to bring up a former spreadsheet that I had that broke down the 2021 viewership numbers in addition to some educational requirements. So this was what I brought up. And again, I brought this up. I wanted to make sure. So the white teams are the teams that were previously brought up for expansion, a couple of the Bay Area teams. And then the red teams are going to be those teams in the Mountain time zone. I'm going to let you know New Mexico State was not on this list. It only went down to 110. So they're not there. I apologize. But you can go over here and see a couple things here. So you see the fact that Oregon is far and away at the top. They averaged 2.5 million viewers per game in 2021. Utah averaged 900,000, and so on and so forth. You see UW, BYU, Stanford, Arizona State, Boise State, I love my boys. Colorado, Air Force, Colorado, Arizona, Air Force, Cal, Utah State, and then you see all those teams there. So you see also the fact that we have the AAU status, and then the Tier 1, Tier 2 research status. So within that, what do I think is actually going on here? Remember, I think that the big and most important thing is this. When you look at a schedule and you're able to see what they're able to add, this is the most important thing that they're talking about right here in terms of what the networks actually want. So this is week 3 from the FBS schedule right now. I went to week 3 because week 4, a lot of these were still TBD. You see this one right here, UMass and Stony Brook is TBD. But you check this out. The big thing they want, so everybody knows about Big Noon Kickoff. Everybody knows that's really, really popular. So this right here is in Mountain time zone. So 10 is noon. So we have the 10 a.m. time slot that everybody wants. There's a big jump for that noon kickoff. So then typically football games have about a 3.5 hour block they want to go with. So we've got 10 a.m. and then we typically go up from there. So this is going to be 1:30. So this is 1:30. This is the 3:30 time slot. You're going to see here lots of teams in here. Then from 3:30, you're going to go to 5, which is going to be the 7 p.m. time slot. So that 7 p.m. time slot is right here. That's the 7 p.m. time slot. Lots of games in there. And then from there, you're going to go to that 8:30 time slot. So you see down here, it gets a little dry. So you see the fact that it's like 5:30, 6, 7, 8, 8:39, 9, 9:59. And I know that's Hawaii, but there's very little competition down here. What the Big Ten wants, ultimately, is they want from noon until 2 in the morning, aka that's the end of the game. We're assuming that from noon until 2 in the morning, they want 14 straight hours of Big Ten football playing. Because in the NFL, they've been able to negotiate some things. They're not going to have this. They're not going to have that. They don't want. They have games at certain times. They only have 3 time slots. They have the 2 regular time slots and then Sunday Night Football. College doesn't have that limitation. You can play games whenever you want to. I mean, you see the fact here that North Dakota State's playing at 9 p.m. at Arizona. And then what else do we have here? We have Duquesne playing at Hawaii. That's insane. Duquesne they're going to be tired of that game. But basically what I'm saying is that's what they want. They want from noon until 10:30, the kickoffs, and then 10:30, 3.5 hours from there. So that's going to be, what is that? That's 2 in the morning. Yeah, so that's 14 straight hours of Big Ten football. Now with that's what they want, but they've already kind of tipped their hand at something, which we're going to get into here in a second. So everybody remembers when they told Oregon and Washington that they are not going to expand just yet. I do think that this is a strong indicator that they are waiting on Notre Dame. Now, I think that Notre Dame has tipped their hand, but once they tipped their hand, they basically said, okay, well, they tipped their hand. What can we do? Oregon and UW add about $60 million a year apiece. That would actually technically eat into the revenue with the rest of the Big Ten in their contract. So what I think is going to go on here is, I think that the Big Ten is fully looking, I don't say looking forward to, but fully understanding that they might have to take a loss with the next couple teams that they add in order to absolutely just corner the market. What I think they want to do is that, again, they told Oregon and UW they were going to turn them down. But I mean, you never know. USC and UCLA are going to get a little tired about shipping out there all by themselves. So Oregon, who kind of has that Portland market, UW, who has the Seattle market, Utah has the Salt Lake market, and then you have Stanford, which has the Bay Area market. They all look, again, all solid universities, solid standing here. BYU is not an AAU member, but those top four are, and they're all tier 1 research institutions. So with that, I think that still fits in the Big Ten. They are going to be able to absolutely just corner the market and be able to have games in every single time zone that wouldn't be too unrealistic. So that's what this is ultimately going towards. I do think that, like I said, I think in the long run, they'll add Oregon and Washington. I think they're also going to add Utah, and I think they'll add Stanford too. And the reason why I think they're going to do that is because they're eventually going to get to the point to where they're going to absolutely just saturate the market. Every single TV and every single big market is going to have Big Ten football on at the same time. They've been a little bit more deliberate with this. Again, the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma. That was for competition, geography. It really, really fit. But you see the fact that, remember when Maryland and Rutgers were added in, the big reason why was because they wanted DC and they wanted New York as markets. Now they have LA. I do believe that they're going to add Seattle, Portland, Salt Lake, Phoenix. I think they're going to try and add all those, maybe even Denver. I know that Colorado doesn't add a whole bunch, but my point is they've been thinking a lot more strategic about this. They're thinking in the long run. They're thinking if we add these networks in here and we're able to say, hey, our dear friends, Mr. Advertisers, we're going to have people across the country, all 4 time zones, watching your stuff. If you put an ad on the Big Ten Network, we have 14 hours of football content in a row. You can't beat that. You should give us your money. All right, guys, so what do you think about my hypothesis? I think that's the situation here. I think that they are, once Notre Dame said no, they're like, all right, so what are we going to do? I think what we need to do is make it obvious for them to join us. Let's get UW. Let's get Oregon, but I think that they mentioned their 4 time zones. I wouldn't be surprised if they come calling for Utah. I wouldn't be surprised if they come calling for Arizona State, Arizona, something like that. I know that they might not fit, but my point is they are in the situation where they are trying to create a national conference, all 4 time zones, all 4 time slots, reasonable for every team. They are trying to make it be a national brand. And I think that's the situation everybody's going towards. Your content is going to be on for 14 hours in a row. There's not many networks that can say that. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all of that. I really appreciate it. That's it for me for the day. I'm going on vacation that week, so I'll make some videos, but I don't know. But I'll see you guys around. I am out.